Welcome back to Open Line. We are talking with Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall today. It's your chance to ask a question of him. Go ahead and give us a call. We have a couple lines open. 615-737+ is the number to call. I have a question for you. Nick Ferris did a story not too long ago about inmates being able to use tablets or iPads in the jail. And I thought, this is not a good situation. How would they ever let these in the jail? I watched the story. It made more sense. I still have questions about it, so kind of enlighten me on this program.
Yeah, so really, if you think about it, the tablet is the communication device.
Yes.
Okay, now what I want everybody to know is we control who you communicate to, and we also monitor what you say. So it's not like my teenagers who can just go where they want to go. And you can't go surfing the internet, you can't go, we control every access you have. So for example, I'm in jail. The way it works today before tablets is I have a list of people I want to call on my calling list. We approve the calling list, and then once it's approved, I can call who I want to call. Now, someone's paying for that call, not the taxpayer. And so what we've done is we've taken that same device and moved that to what you and I have learned to live on, these smartphones, which is really a tablet. There's multi-purpose for the tablet. One of them is the ability to communicate via phone. There is a texting system, and how that works is I text you, you're free, I'm inside. I text this third-party system, and you can access the system and read it. No victims, no, I can't, my drug dealers, I can't, I mean, I'm controlling the agency controls everybody I communicate with. So I go to a third party, you can open up the third party, but we approve you. So it's kind of like an email, really. Yes, a third party, but we authorize all of that. You can't just go contact new people. And that was my main question. What keeps me from calling a victim? What keeps me from setting up things on the outside that shouldn't be set up? That sort of thing. Yeah, it's very, very, very controlled. And to be honest, and so is the phones. We've had phones. We listen to every. I mean, it's recorded. And you can still do that on the tablets if someone's making a phone call or FaceTime if that's available. Okay. And it's important, though, to make sure that we all understand it's the same communication controlled by us with today's technology. And so, for example, I have a 23-year-old son, and I said this on Nick's story, and he corrected me twice. I said, my son wouldn't even know how to dial a phone. And if you put a phone on the wall in jail and he needed a call, and we all want them to stay in contact with their family, and again, a lot of these folks are yet to be adjudicated, and so they have rights and they have access to information. But my son wouldn't know how to communicate in the way that I grew up. It's like this foreign object. Right. So this device is not to make life simpler, for the inmate. It is about staying in contact and communication with your family and your loved ones. But there's another reason. It's a management tool for us. We have everything on that device. They can put educational equipment, religious materials. They can download music. It's all paid for by them, not the taxpayer, not one penny. And so they can do that. And then the device, just like my 15-year-old, who monitors and watches his phone as he's driving down the road. And so in jail and prison settings around the country, you have one TV hanging on the wall, there's arguments over the TV, no one agrees, it's loud, you have a lot of disruption, a lot of fights, and this really controls the individual to go monitor and do what they want to do on their own time and pace. Very similar to the way we're living in our society. I suspect if you have multi-people in one house, I bet there's more than one person looking at the device. And so it's not, it could be portrayed as something to make life easier. It is really better for us. We strip all of that stuff off and hand that same device to the next person being booked. And all of that information is controlled by us. It's not at all free will, go do what you want to do. And it doesn't cost the taxpayer one penny. It's all about access, and you're paying just like you would via the phone. And we're seeing it, there's some future to it. The medical information, we talked about mental health. We envision the day soon where all of your medical information is on your device, so when I go see the nurse, or when I'm being rebooked, all of the information shows back up. We know exactly who you are medically and where you are. So there's a lot of future for us, and even some probably visitation, where today you drive to visit me at the facility. The future is you visit me FaceTime. We control that. I can sit there and watch and talk, not just talk to you. And so it's really just to move that technology into the hands of people who are incarcerated. What's expensive and difficult for jails and prisons is to move people around. It's hard, it's difficult, it's safety
security risk,
it is. So the more you can control people by leaving them where they are and bring the information to them, the less movement we have, and the less movement my visitors may have to go across town to see me. So there's a lot of potential going forward, but I've had a lot of feedback about people saying, well, my kids don't even have a tablet. Well, it's really for us. Now, I know it allows us to keep control of them and all their information on one device, We've yet to have fights and problems over that.
Have there been any problems? No.
We haven't had anything. We shut them off, I believe it's at 10 o'clock at night, so you can't do anything past that. Another control thing that you'd be interested in, let's say I was in jail and I wanted to text you to this third party. I said, hey, who won the basketball game tonight? That goes into this third party. You can't see it for 8 hours. And the reason is it's a security apparatus for us. If I said, hey, I'm headed to the doctor right now, you could be at the hospital.
Right.
So 8 hours later, and so you communicate back, I don't see that for 8 hours. So there's all sorts of security apparatus built into it where it protects our staff and protects the information, and we monitor all of it. So it's very, it's a tool we can use, and we've done that over the years with phones. Many murders have been solved over the phone.
Exactly. So how are you recording this stuff? Because that can be valuable evidence in a prosecution.
It's so we've had a lot of feedback, but
I feel better about that now. Thank you for explaining that. I'm sure others do as well. We do have Hiram on the phone. Oh no, we don't. Hiram hung up. But sorry about that, Hiram. We took a little long getting through that, but that's okay. We appreciate your phone call. Another question that I'm sure you can enlighten me on. The big story for the past month really has been Tad Cummins.
Right.
He's in federal custody. He's going to be brought back by the U.S. Marshals. Right. Is he going to wind up in the Davidson County Jail? Very
likely he'll be here at least for some time, assuming, again, there's some issues that they will work out. There's other contracts with federal prisoners around the area, and very high profile folks, the sheriff and judges and things that have happened recently. We ask that they move them out of the county because it's too much notoriety for that situation. The Cummings case will be different. He has no ties to Nashville, but if you're a judge or a sheriff, you don't need to be housed in this area. And so it's very likely he would be here for some period of time. The marshals are very good about slipping in and slipping out. We want to be that way so it doesn't distract and cause, but it won't surprise me if he's here.
How do you treat high-profile inmates like that?
Yeah, this is the thing that people don't understand. Number one, we have to protect them from themselves. Aaron Hernandez, just a few weeks ago, people have been asking about that. You're protecting them from themselves, and you also protect them from the other inmates. Sometimes there's a complication about that because there's notoriety, and sometimes people see that as a popular thing if they could do something to them. So you got to protect all of that. That's part of it. And then you also want to protect your staff because we have hospital runs and court runs, and we don't want people knowing when we're going. We don't want the victims or, quite frankly, gang members or other partners to be involved. So it's a very kind of a quiet, let's get our job done without a whole lot of attention on it. And then ultimately, the housing is, I've always told people, we put them in jumpsuits and we have a number assigned because we don't want to know what you did. And we don't want to judge and value that. And so we want it to become just a regular daily routine because the more attention we give them and the more attention the other inmates give them and everybody else, it creates all sorts of problems. And so in a city like Nashville, you'll only be high profile for a few days or be another one.
I would say, because everybody knows his face at this point. So even putting him in an orange jumpsuit doesn't erase everybody knowing who he is. But you're saying that just lasts for a short time.
Think about this. But we've had a judge and a sheriff and another. I mean, there's something high profile that feels like, and I'm not to the level of Cummings, but I'm just saying you'll have something major news story that everyone's interested in, and it may be, God forbid, some serial killer from another state that was caught here, and it amazes me.
It's nothing new, is what you're saying.
We try to get that down to a pretty normal. The thing that worries us the most, obviously, is a suicide or harming someone else. We try to get that under control very quickly and making sure that the person is seen by mental health, but also is in a protective environment so we can ensure that doesn't happen. A lot of people ask about the Hernandez case. I mean, here's a guy who's been in prison for a long time, or a couple of years. Very, very rare.
And he had just been acquitted of another double murder. I mean, he still had a life sentence, but he'd just been acquitted. And then a few days later, he commits suicide.
Very, very rare. I mean, had you been convicted on that day, you would go into suicide. So and that's things that you just, and I always tell people, you can try very hard to protect people from themselves, but if they really want to harm themselves, it's virtually impossible to stop. You just have to continue to try to do that.
What does Suicide Watch look like in the jail?
Yeah, so, and a couple of things about that I think that people may want to know. That the profile of a suicide in a jail in this country, but surely in Nashville, is a young, white, recently arrested, segregated for low-level charges.
Really?
And a lot of that is because it's taking that person, and that's just the demographics. It doesn't mean that there aren't others, but taking that person and bringing them into the environment, often coming off of drugs, often feeling alone and isolated, the families and other folks, and so you got all that going on, and so you have to really be careful for all people coming in the first 72 hours. And what we're trying to do is to get through their own actions. Where are you mentally? And that's not easy because they're not going to be honest.
Right.
And so you've got a lot of challenges. But suicide watch, that you would traditionally call that, it has all sorts of levels. The highest level, as you can imagine, is taking you completely out of your clothing. One of the things, we have paper clothing, but one of the things that happens, as it did with Hernandez, was the sheets. We've had folks do that with their shoelaces and belts, and so you take as much as you can away from every arrestee. But when you go on suicide watch, you virtually have to go, and we have a padded environment, or a soft cell as we call it, because we have folks who are really trying to harm themselves, you know, and mutilate themselves. And so there's a lot of challenges when you're going through that, and the worst case is obviously for the medical situation to continue to have to monitor them almost 24 hours a day at some point. We do a 15-minute watch, but it's nearly 24 hours a day. I
would assume so. Let's talk about something that happened recently within, it started at the local level, then the governor pulled back, the decriminalization of marijuana. I know your officers aren't out there making the arrest or making the call like the city was able to do for a little while. The officers could say, instead of charging you with a misdemeanor, I'll give you community service, or I'm going to write you a civil citation. And the governor said, no, we're doing away with that. How does that affect what you're seeing in the jail? So you were a proponent of this.
Right. Yeah, you know, I never thought I would be able to say that. I've been around long enough to see and to say that, you know, I just think that that's poorly done. Let's just talk about it. I mean, marijuana, the decriminalization amounts that we're talking about.
A half ounce or less.
A half ounce or less. And you and I can leave here and go buy any amount we want of a substance called alcohol. There's no limit on how much we buy.
True.
I don't know why we limit what's going on over here, but there's no limit on alcohol. And it's proven that alcohol is far more likely to create problems for you and victims of crime than marijuana. I'm not a proponent of marijuana at all. I just don't like inconsistency. I don't like hypocrisy. And one of the things that bothers me is, while we're sitting here, you know, the likelihood that someone is going to die of an opioid overdose is extremely high. There is no likelihood a person is going to die of a marijuana overdose.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we talk so much, and we're talking about not decriminalizing. Oh my goodness, this will cause a problem. While that's going on, no one that I know of is really talking about the real issue. And I don't. I'm not a fan of marijuana. That's not it at all. But I think it's just really ridiculous to debate whether we should be arresting, criminally booking, and charging people for an amount of marijuana that quite frankly, now if you're using it and driving, then you're under the influence. You can do whatever you want to do. But you're talking about possession of an amount of a substance. When you and I can drive down here and buy, and by the way, our doctors can prescribe far more likely addictive thing that will change our life forever. And we really don't talk much about that. People die of overdose of opioid more than cars or guns. Your newscast tonight, I promise you, had a gun, I bet, or car wreck.
Sure, yes.
But we didn't talk about the overdoses. And so while the debate about decriminalization, and there's all sorts of politics in that, I just find it ironic that whoever is against decriminalizing it, I want to see what you're doing to really change the world. Yeah, because we're losing people every day.
And I want to talk about the opioid epidemic and how it affects how the jail operates. Right. This is a huge problem nationwide, and I know it is here. But first, I do want to get to Lucy. Lucy, thank you for being part of the show. What's your question tonight?
Okay, I've got a question, but first I'd like to comment about what y'all are doing about mental health, because being locked up in a jail is like combat stress, 7/24, and then when you let somebody like that back out into the society, it's very hard for them to adjust. But my question is on this decriminalization of, what is it, a half ounce, a pot and less?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
When your jails overflow, you know, do you send your inmates to other jails around the area? And if you do Metro taxpayers reimburse those jails on that overflow?
That's a
good
question.
Great question. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're unique in Nashville. We have nearly half of the beds that we have are empty. We've torn one down, so let's count those as beds. They're gone today. But yeah, if you take the number of beds that the city said we were going to need, and the experts said in the year 2000, there were 4,000 beds built, and they were all here in Nashville. To me, it's just who I am. I believe we should be doing something about why people are coming to jail and change the likelihood they come back. And so we've been very aggressive in ways of trying to get addictions, as I say, under arrest, and get mental illness in a better place, and deal with people. The why they came is more important than who they are. So let's arrest that problem, and we've been aggressively trying to do that. So before we tore the CJC down, because the math gets funny, there were 1,800 empty beds.
Wow. So
we've never rented another bed from another county. We don't need to do that.
And I think I read that since you took over as sheriff in 2002, inmate population is down by 26%.
26%. And we want to, you know, I'm the only guy you'll ever meet that wants to do away with my job.
I was saying, this isn't working out math-wise.
If we keep going. And the facility you talked about earlier, one thing that will never get said is that there were 1,300 beds downtown, and we're reducing that to 750. Wow. So we're reducing the need for what we do. Ultimately, I won't live long enough to see it all go away, but the reality of it is we want to see it trend that way, because yes, people need to be in jail. There are people who
people want to know the bad guys are still going to be in jail.
Right. We've got to hold, but there are situations, marijuana is one of those, and others where we have to decide as a society, is that really, do you want to put people in jail for having cancer? No. Do you want to put people in jail for a heart attack? No. But why do we do it if they have mental illness? And do you really want a person who, you know, you have to decide this as a society. It costs a lot of money, $100 a day, to house a person in jail. So the person who has a half ounce of marijuana in the back seat and is arrested and brought down, and then loses their job and goes, and they're 19, and if I'm right, I believe the last 3 presidents smoked marijuana. So they turned out all right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a proponent of that, but I just think we have to be fair about it. Do you want to ruin those people's lives, put a jail cell around them that's $100 a day? When there are bigger problems, let's deal with opioid. Let's go somewhere that's legitimate.
And just to answer Lucy's question, because I don't want to leave it unanswered, you were saying you guys don't farm out inmates because you're just not booked.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, we get emails all the time. I got one this week from a sheriff in a distant East County wanting to rent the beds.
Really?
And we've done that before, and they're in a crisis mode, or they don't have the bed space, and so we'll send them the price of what the contract would be, and and we can talk to them, and that happens sometimes. But this is so far east, I don't think they'll do it. But yeah, we just, you should not want to build more jails. We want to get people to behave and do the right thing, but we also want them placed in where they really belong, and sometimes jail isn't the right place.
Absolutely. Okay, we got to take another quick break. When we come back, more of your questions. Get on the line now if you want to ask the sheriff something. 615-737-PLUS is the number to call. We're coming right back.